Hello, this is Trent Chapman with Short Sale Genius. I've got a lot of people have asked me in the past about negotiating for other agents and who do you choose and how do you choose a good negotiator. I want to talk about first the benefits of working with a negotiator and someone that does your files for you, and then I'll talk about the 4 drawbacks or downsides or things to look out for when you're choosing someone to negotiate for you. Now the top 4 benefits for choosing someone to negotiate your files on your behalf is number 1, you get to focus on being a real estate agent. You don't have to focus on doing short sales. A lot of people are tired of doing the same old with the bank, calling the bank, consistently fighting an uphill battle. And I understand that. A lot of people don't like that. And so the first benefit is you get to actually work with clients and focus on your core competency. And that's finding people that need to sell their homes and finding buyers for those homes. And a lot of people, that's what they want to do. That's why they got into real estate. The second thing is, if you have someone else handling your short sale negotiations, you now have more time to focus on finding more listings and getting more deals. And really, as we know, that's where the money's made, is putting the deal together and making sure it closes. So that's a second thing to having a short sale negotiator. You have more time to focus on your own marketing and finding more deals. And there's also, the third benefit is there's less day-to-day stress. Imagine the difference in your life if you don't have to call a bank anymore and all you need to focus on is your regular real estate transaction and finding listings and finding buyers. That's really going to make your life less stressful. And the fourth benefit of focusing just on your real estate and letting someone else focus on the negotiations, you actually get to be the hero on all these transactions while your negotiator doesn't get all that credit for all the good work they do. You get the credit, you get the referrals, you get the ongoing relationship with the client. So for a lot of agents, being that rainmaker, that agent that really focuses on real estate is what they want to do. They don't want to have to worry about all the mess of short sales and negotiating with banks. Now, personally, I love doing this part of the business. I like to negotiate with banks. I kind of find like a game that's fun for me. And there's a lot of other people like me who like to talk with banks and play the game, even though it's frustrating sometimes. That's what we like to do. Now, a lot of agents, like I said, on the flip side, are not like that, and they want to focus just on real estate. Now, when you are choosing someone like me to negotiate your short sales, you're going to find somebody that is going to be a good match for you. Now, here's 4 things you need to look out for. 1, are they licensed? And most states have licensing requirements now for short sale negotiations. And if you're working with an unlicensed person, that could cause you a lot more problems than it's worth and actually cause you more liability in the long run. The second thing is that person trained? The biggest frustration I've heard from agents is working with an untrained negotiation company or negotiator that doesn't know what they're doing with the bank. Either it's oftentimes a real estate agent or a paralegal working for a law firm that they really don't know how to negotiate with banks. They're just calling the bank every day and asking them what's the status. That's something you could do or hire a $10 and $8 an hour employee to do in your own office. So it's really not worth the extra expense if you're having to have someone that's untrained make those phone calls. That's the second thing. Part of that, though, is that they don't know the bank's lying to them. If I'm working as a negotiator, calling the bank tells me you need to come up on the offer to this price, and I have no idea if it's a legitimate response or request, I will come back and tell you you need to come up on the offer. Now, if you're working with a trained agent or a trained person that understands how to negotiate with the bank, they're going to know when the bank's just negotiating and when they're telling the truth and when it's something that really needs to be done. So you're not going to be dealing with the back and forth of someone who really is just a messenger and not really a negotiator. And that all comes from not knowing the bank's numbers. If you're dealing with someone who negotiates with a bank, not knowing that the short sale offer is by far a better net return than the foreclosure would be, then they're going to give in when the bank asks for extra money, cash contribution, or an unsecured note. They're really not going to know how to push back on the bank because they don't have any leverage to understand how they can push back on the bank. And finally, part of working with an untrained person is oftentimes they have no idea how to get a release of liability, let alone the difference between a release of lien and a release of liability. I'm surprised at how many companies focus solely on the short sale approval letter and not on the release of liability for the client. Now, in not all cases is that possible, but more cases than not it is if you're working with a trained individual who understands how to push back on the bank to get them what they want in order to release the liability for your seller. Now, the third thing that you need to look out for when you're looking for someone else to negotiate is investors. Now, investors aren't always bad. I do work with investors on occasion, but if you're working with a company who says, I will negotiate all of your short sales for free and you don't need to pay us a dime, most of the time they're going to tell you also that they have a buyer in all your transactions. What they're doing is it's an investment group negotiating a short sale for the benefit of the buyer, and they're negotiating the terms of the seller's settlement. Now, just think for a second, is that a conflict of interest? The buyer's negotiating the settlement terms for the seller. Are they really going to be looking out for the best interest of your seller for full release of liability to make sure that seller is in a better position than had they just let it foreclose? A short sale should be a better option than foreclosure, and if it's not negotiated properly, sometimes it's not. And so that's the one thing to watch out for. If you're working with an investment group and all their offers are investment offers, just know that most of your deals will not close. A high percentage of those end up going to foreclosure or not getting approved because of the discount that they're asking for. So what sounds like a great option because it doesn't cost you anything, in the long run costs you more money and more of a bad reputation with your clients when their home forecloses. So be cautious of working with investment groups specifically that only represent investors. Now, the fourth thing that also you need to look out for when you're working with a negotiation company is transparency in the file. How many times have I heard that a negotiator was saying one thing and another thing without actually having proof or documentation to pass it on to the agent? At the end of the transaction, the agent finds out the file is not moving along, there's no progress, but there's no way of actually knowing. There's only conversations by phone every couple of weeks or so to give them an update on the file. We have a system that we use in our office, a lot of our agents use, that negotiate for other agents, where they have a transparent system where every file has a log and a note that's transparent to the buyer, the seller, and the buyer's and seller's agents, so they can know what's going on with the file, start to finish, and see when the progress has stopped. That way it's not a question of whether it's moving forward or not, it's whether or not they're actually doing the work on the file is transparent to all parties involved. Now, I know that there's a lot of probably other little details you need to look out for, but those are the main things that I've identified have been key points to watching out for your seller and also yourself to make sure most of the transactions you do close and you get paid for most of those transactions. So don't always look at just what's the cheapest alternative for negotiating short sales. What has the highest close ratio that will create a referral business lifelong with that client and also help you become a better agent versus just an agent who has half their deals that close and the other half go to foreclosure. Now, we on occasion have worked with agents in the past negotiating as a third-party negotiator. And basically the way we work is we have to find people that have a congruent idea of what they want done for their client, that they're actually looking at it for the client's best interest above just making money. That's why a lot of times we don't prefer to work with investors specifically because the focus is usually too much on just the money instead of helping the client. Now, as an agent, if you're looking to outsource negotiations and you feel like we would be a good fit, you can go ahead and apply. Down below there's a button that says apply now. And if we are a good fit and you go through that questionnaire and everything works out, we will get in contact with you and let you know if we were willing to work together and if it's a good fit for us as well. But it is a good option for a lot of you that are in this position of trying to find someone to negotiate your short sales for you. But for those that are still looking and it's not a good fit for us, use this information I've shared with you to make sure you're choosing the best negotiator to make sure that your client is being taken care of and that you make more money by closing more of your transactions. Personally, I believe that every agent should take control of their negotiations or at least have it in-house with an assistant that they have personally trained who they can watch over. That is the best case scenario. But if you can't have that, the next best option is having a well-trained negotiator do it for you. Now, if you're the type of person that wants to learn on your own or wants to train your own office and have that control in your office, we can also help you with that by teaching your negotiator, teaching your in-office assistant how to work with the banks and how to negotiate so you can still focus on your core competency of getting new listings and helping people to find a home that they love and closing more transactions. So if you'd like to have your own office trained, then I would suggest that you click on the link above, get started now, and select the Gold membership. That way you have the tools that we use in our office as well as the ongoing support to help you with your short sales. This is Trent Chapman, the Short Sale Genius, and thanks for taking some time with me today.